Welcome to another exciting episode of bringing Jesus back into focus. He went out of focus 1700 years ago when the Roman Emperor Constantine went and killed in the name of Jesus and the loving divine source of our spiritual life of love. Therefore, the Christian leaders at the time took about 50 years, but they converted Christians back into being Jewish Christians and worshipping the God Yahweh instead of the divine loving spiritual creator who's only love. So the Gospels of Jesus Unplugged is a project that I've had to undertake because of the misleading information regarding Jesus that's crept in over the years, and the Jewish Christian churches tend to teach this dialogue, which is very heavily seeing Jesus through a Jewish lens of a sacrificial lamb, and his blood cleanses you of his sins, and there's a lot of the apocalypse and the apocalyptic overlays that they put on top of him. These are not necessary at all. I was born into the Jewish Christian Catholic Church in 1957, and I left when I was 16 because they were teaching that there's only one God in the Bible, and the Jewish God Yahweh is the same divine source of love as Jesus. And I thought, no, that's clearly not correct. You only have to look at what Yahweh does. And there, of course, there are two Yahwehs. There's not one. It's a dualistic religion, a Jewish religion. It is an unfortunate lie that the Jewish religion is monotheistic. That's just a simple lie. There are two very different gods in the Jewish religion. One is the God of love your neighbour as yourself, or even love a foreigner who is amongst you. Treat them as a Jew and love them as a Jew. That's in Leviticus. But then there's the slaughter at Jericho that Yahweh tells them to go and commit, killing every man, woman and innocent child, steal all their gold, silver and brass, bring it back to my temple, says Yahweh, and burn the place to the ground, and I'll give you all their land. I'll steal it for you. In other words, they just go and kill everyone and take it. Which is what the Romans did and the Greeks did and the Egyptians did. Whenever they got the chance, the Jews did it also. The name of their war god for the Romans was Mars, the Greek war god was Ares, the Egyptian war god was Sekhmet, the Jewish violent, stinking war god, the same as all the others, violent, brutal, murdering, thieving, genocidal maniac, was Yahweh. Yahweh won. Just another war god, that's all it is. Nothing more than any of the other stinking war gods. But then they've got another god of love, just as the Romans had Pax and the Egyptians had Irene. Different temples, different gods, different names. Peace, love, sharing, getting on with your neighbour. Different god. A god of light and love as opposed to the dark, filthy war god. The Jews unfortunately lied, cunning, deceptive, and they called that god by the same name as their stinking war god, Yahweh. So you've got two Yahwehs, a good Yahweh and a bad Yahweh. And that's the problem with the Jewish religion. And then that was overlaid onto Jesus by these corrupt Christian leaders in the 1700 years ago, roughly. They overlaid it. And then the Christian religion became the Jewish Christian religion, which is ridiculous. So I'm not a Jewish Christian. I never have been and I never will be. I only acknowledge this divine loving life force as a spiritual creator of our spiritual life, and it's only love. And as Jesus said, every Christian should be a pacifist. There's no doubt about it. And they were pacifists until 313 AD, and after that they became, once again, the Roman soldiers could become Christians and go and kill. That's when they became Jewish Christians, and the pacifist message died out, except for a few remaining Christians in the world today, and I'm one of them. So I belong to the original church that Jesus found, the original spiritual community of children moving through this material world, and I'm living in my spiritual body. My body of flesh dies and rots and stinks, and it's fed to the vultures. That's what Jesus said to do with your body of flesh when it's dead. It's vulture food. There's nothing in it. It doesn't rise from the dead. So I've had to correct a lot of the misapprehensions that Jewish Christians are teaching, because I ended up in researching it recently, and I found they were just slandering him. Unbelievable. He's coming back on the clouds to kill people and create starvation and put sicknesses on children's bodies and sores and poison the rivers, famines, all these sorts of things. It's shocking, disgusting slander. So this is the Gospels Unplugged, which should be available on the 11th of March 2026, where I have a much better presentation of his Gospels, a clearer understanding, and I've removed a lot of the false things from it and Jewish overlays and redundancies. His beautiful teachings are as beautiful as Buddha's. It's about this inner awakening that he and Buddha both taught, the clear light mind experience. The way Jesus described the clear light mind experience the Buddha talked about was, it's the inside of the cup that's the problem. It's the dirt inside your cup that you have to clean out of yourself in order for the inside of you to be clean. And then Jesus said, if your eye or mind is single, your whole body will be filled with light. It's the same clear light mind experience the Buddha had. They both had the same experience, but then Jesus went further and brought the love in action. He became a selfless child of love on earth, a spiritual being fully awakened, enlightened. But then he went to the sinners, the outcasts, the sick, the lepers, the poor. He loved them. They were outcasts, spat on, looked down on. He treated everyone the same. So did Buddha. They understood. Inside all of us is a beautiful spiritual body. You've got to wake up and get into it. The only difference between all of us on all the human children on earth, excepting those who are seriously ill with various, perhaps brain illnesses or brain damage, that's another category. That's a physical sickness. It's not spiritual. But all healthy children on earth, every single child, everyone does have anyway, a beautiful spiritual body within them. To what degree you're in that spiritual identity or out of that identity in a false egotistical shadow figure, that is who you are. If you're a mass murdering killer warmonger like Netanyahu, Hamas, Putin, the Israeli army, the Russian army, all these other people, Iranian army, Ukraine, if you're murdering and killing other children, you've moved out of your spiritual body and you're in the fake, false shadow identity. Your spiritual body's not involved in that at all. Nothing. They're in complete filth and darkness and stink. They're the satanic children of the earth, all of them. They've moved into a fake, lying identity. All the children of the loving spiritual creator, we only live out of our spiritual identity. We don't fight back or kill them, even though they might kill us. We might try to stop them or move away or prevent them, but we don't become beasts of the stinking flesh like they are, satanic children. We don't do that. The first 300 years of Christians, they never fought back, never thrown to the lions. Christians were mostly killed by Jews and Romans in the early era of Christianity, persecuted and killed, but they never killed anyone in retaliation because they knew that there's another world, that's spiritual. They knew what Jesus taught back in those days, that we've got two bodies. That's what he taught. So the Gospels of Jesus Unplugged, I've had to do it in order to help correct his teachings because they're being perverted, distorted. But many Jewish Christians still follow him to the heavenly spiritual world, but they don't look at the Jewish religion much, and they rip out, or they just don't care about the book of Revelation, because I advise every Christian to rip it out and burn it, throw it in the rubbish bin. It's garbage. It's a slanderous, filthy, stinking book. So this is the Gospels of Jesus Unplugged, and we're up to chapter 5, I think, on faith. So the Gospels of Jesus Unplugged, and we'll just read the back of the cover of the book. Jesus taught we can all experience an inner spiritual awakening if we search for it. He called this the treasure hidden in the field of earth or flesh. This is our eternal spiritual identity, empowered only by the loving spiritual life force of our loving spiritual creator. Our bodies of flesh are only temporary and empowered by earthly things, and all flesh dies. Only our spiritual body and soul mind of love lives on, to come into the presence of our loving Creator to reap as we have sown. His teachings and spiritual way of love and non-violence can help awaken us all into a new spiritual life here on earth, leading us to the heavenly spiritual world of love after death. Jesus taught we all have two different bodies with us in one, and he said that the spiritual body, being eternal, is the most important to be healthy and well in spirit. He provides us with the spiritual instructions to follow and become at one with, to be awakened and transformed into spiritual children of light of our loving spiritual Creator in heaven. We then help awaken other children to become spiritual and bring peace and heavenly love to earth for all in need. These translations of the Gospels of Jesus remove the Jewish overlays and distortions placed over the universal teachings of Jesus and spiritual way of non-violence and love. Our mortal minds change from being dualistic into singular minds, viewing all things through the eye of love. Jesus said, if your eye is single, you will be filled with light, but if dualistic and divided, you will be filled with darkness. Jesus said not to mix his new spiritual way of understanding our loving Creator with the Old Testament dualistic God of the Jews, or you will lose the understanding of the one true, loving spiritual Creator of our spiritual lives, and not realize who you really are as her spiritual children of love and only love on earth. These Gospels help focus his message of the loving way to reach the heavenly spiritual world from earth. So we'll get straight into chapter 5, faith. I'll just condense that down a little bit there and just recenter that. Well, just recenter that into there and try to move that across a bit without losing it. There we are. And that's enough. No, down a bit more. Okay, that'll do. Right, well there we are. Just about. There we are. There. And a little bit more. There. Okay, so this chapter's on faith. This is chapter 5. If you're a spiritual being, a spiritual believer, we have to have faith in the unseen, as it's commonly said. And yet, once we become a believer in the spiritual world after death, and you connect to this spirit, and you understand it's only love, this is really vital. It's in the preceding chapters and further on in this book and in the Teachings Unplugged book. We have to believe in this heavenly spiritual world in order to sort of receive the loving spiritual life force from that world, which empowers our spiritual body and soul mind of love, which we then live out of here in the earth world of dirt. And it's only material here, but the heavenly world's spiritual. But the more you believe in it, it's easier to connect, and it's much easier for them to help you and guide you, and also send you small signs and wonders or unusual coincidences that help you, and even greater things than that can occur in your life. They call them miracles. The correct translation is signs and wonders from another dimension, another world, the spiritual world that Jesus and Buddha both understood about. So chapter 5, faith. We cannot see the heavenly spiritual world or our loving spiritual Creator with our eyeballs of flesh, or any angelic beings who live in the heavenly spiritual world, although some report that they can. We cannot even see our own spiritual bodies that we have within our bodies of flesh right now. We only see them when we leave our body of flesh behind. We cannot give physical proof to other children that this heavenly spiritual world exists simply because they are formed from two different life forces. But the more we contemplate the words of great spiritual teachers like Jesus and Buddha and begin to implement them in our daily lives, we can open up a spiritual connection with that heavenly world or nirvana from within our spirit and soul mind of love that come to life. Then the subtle presence of our loving spiritual Creator in the heavenly spiritual world can be felt and experienced as we grow stronger in our true spiritual identity of love and non-violence. And events in our life can be guided from above through what appear to be timely coincidences, but are really helping hands from the heavenly spiritual world. This leads us into a real deepening faith in the existence of life after death of the body of temporary flesh, and empowers us here on earth to become spiritual children, selfless and filled only with love. For this is how the heavenly spiritual world is, only love. Jesus said, have faith. Now this is a collection of some of his faith sayings from throughout the Gospels. So I've tried to bring some of his more important points together into single chapters, while then moving on to the Gospels themselves more fully as we progress into the book. This is the chapter on faith, which we have to have. It's a powerful thing to have faith in heaven. Mark 11:22-24, Jesus said, "Have faith in our loving spiritual Creator's existence, for truly I say to you, if any awakened spiritual child of our loving Creator says to this mountain, be lifted up and cast into the sea, and has no doubt in his heart and soul, but believes that those things he says will be done for him, then whatever he has asked for will be done. Therefore I say to you, whatever things you need and ask for, believe that you receive them, and you shall have them." Jesus is saying we can ask heaven for help. How we receive it, they know best, but we can ask, have faith, they can see you. Matthew 17:19-21, the disciples asked Jesus why they could not heal the sick child like he did. Jesus said, "Because of your unbelief. For assuredly I say to you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. However, this long-term kind of illness does not go out except by prayer and fasting." Matthew 18:19-20, if two of you agree on earth concerning anything you ask, it will be done for you by our loving spiritual Creator in the heavenly spiritual world. For where two or three are gathered together in my spiritual way, I am also there with the spiritual life force in them. So once we awaken to be more spiritual like Jesus did, the same spiritual life force from heaven that he had in him and in his spiritual body is also in us. So he's with us because we're in the same spiritual life force. Not the earthly life force of the physical body. That's potatoes, beans, pumpkins, water, gases. That's a different life force. So we have to have faith and belief. Luke 17:6. The apostles asked Jesus to increase their faith. Jesus replied, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can say to this sycamore tree, be uprooted and be planted in the sea, and it will happen as you say. Author. Jesus tells us we must believe in a heavenly spiritual world, formed by our loving spiritual Creator, empowered and sustained by her loving spiritual life force, which can alter any material thing on earth. Jesus said it is her spiritual life force in his spiritually awakened body that performs all the miracles. We must awaken our spiritual body and soul mind of love, connect with our loving Creator's life force within us as her children on earth, and she will help us perform good works. Jesus advised the disciples to increase their belief and connection with her and her loving spiritual life force, as they still did not have an adequate amount within themselves to heal the sick child. So the apostles still didn't fully understand the loving spiritual Creator. I call this loving spiritual Creator her. The traditional Jewish Christian tradition is him or father. She's beyond gender, or the loving Creator is beyond gender, because she's spiritual, he's spiritual. Not physical, mortal bodies, so biological things. But the thing is, he's saying you haven't connected enough. Your spirit's not fully awakened enough yet, not awoken enough yet, not filled with her loving life force yet enough to flow it out of you into that child's body for her to heal him. So he's advising him to move closer to the spiritual connection with her and her love in you. Deepen your connection with heaven, he's saying. Then you'll have more power to heal, which we all have to do that. I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to heal my own physical body because it's nearly dying of a fungal infection. And I'm trying to follow the way Jesus did it, asking the loving one to do it, but also using his method. I'm not very good at it though, so but I'll keep practicing. It doesn't hurt to practice. You can't play a musical piece on the piano until you learn how to play the scales first, generally speaking anyway. Basic steps first. Jesus said, have faith. This is the third collection of sayings. Thomas, saying 106, Jesus said, when you make the two into one, you will become children of humanity. And when you say mountain move, it will move. Thomas 48, if you make peace with each other in a single house, they will say to the mountain, move, and it will move. This is very important. Jesus is saying making the two into one. When you make two in a single house, when they come together, these are the two bodies. Jesus is talking about the two bodies and heaven, which is spiritual, our spiritual body. The earth body belongs to the earth, but the two bodies are in a single house. When I bring my spiritual body into the primary position, and I'm a spiritual child of love on earth, and my body's going to, physical body's going to die and rot and stink, but I'm going to leave in my spiritual body, which I've accepted from heaven's beautiful creative life force, and I'm living out of love and non-violence right here now on the earth, in this dangerous earth world. I will not join an army or a navy or an air force, and I advise every child on earth to get out of those stinking, filthy organisations. We need coast guards and police forces, certainly. All armies of the world should be disbanded. All armaments industry, stop them. So the thing is, when my body, physical body, and my spiritual body become at one, that's when Jesus has said, you're empowered from heaven then. Your physical body is secondary, and it must follow the spiritual body first of love and non-violence, because that's the only one that's going to leave after death. So you mustn't kill anyone. So in this, the author says, that's me, Jesus is telling us we must not be divided between our body of flesh identity and our spiritual body housed in the one bodily form. You've got to remember, our physical body is like water in a vase. You can't see the water in a vase, a clay vase, but it's there. It takes the form of the vase perfectly. Water is liquid. You put it into any shaped vase you want, square, round, tall, short, skinny, fat. The water will fill that shape perfectly. Your spiritual body is filling your physical body perfectly. The shapes are identical because the spirit's sort of like water. It's more fluid. So Jesus is saying these two bodies are housed in the one body, the one form, the human form. If our spiritual intention is motivated by the loving spiritual life force in our spiritual body, we must also bring into perfect alignment our body of flesh and its dualistic mind potential, and rein it in to be in accord with our spiritual intention of only love. Then the two become at one in purpose to bring heaven's love to earth. Then miracles can be performed by the loving spiritual life force in our spiritual body, flowing out to others through our body of flesh. So Jesus is saying if you can bring your physical body and your mortal mind, which is dualistic, love, hate, kill, save, that sort of thing, that's all brain-mind function. It's not your spiritual mind. You can't do that in your spiritual body. You can't hurt anyone in your spiritual body, certainly not deliberately to hurt them. You can't do it. We're spiritual children of heaven, and there's no violence in heaven, and there's none in a spiritual child. So he's trying to point out to us, make your spiritual body the primary, then bring your physical body into alignment with your spiritual body of love, and then you are indeed, the life force and love from heaven can flow straight into your spiritual body, which is clean and free of sin. Has to be clean, otherwise you're going to poison the life force. Right? The dirt inside the cup, you've got to clean that out. So you have a clean, pure life force coming in from another dimension, another world. It's spiritual. It comes into your spiritual body. Then you express it through your body of flesh. You materialize it for other children who are in trouble. You bring love to them. You manifest it through your physical body. That's when you can perform miracles. That's when we can heal children. If we were only back into this way of Jesus' understanding and the nexus or the connection he had to the heavenly spiritual world and universe, he had that life force which is way more powerful than any of the man-made bombs or weapons or anything on this earth. It's a spiritual life force of pure love. That's why it's so powerful, it's pure. But it's only love. So it's a beautiful saying that. If two make peace with each other in a single house, you've got two bodies, two minds. Bring them together as love, and you will have this life force flowing through, and then you will be able to have more power to accomplish loving things. We may not achieve being able to perform miracles with her loving life force. Jesus says it's the loving spiritual creator that does the miracles, but we are allowed to share the life force in order for the miracle to happen. That's why we're sort of regarded as her children, you might say, sharing her loving life force with other children. Have faith and it'll happen. Matthew 7:7, Jesus said, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it will be opened to him. Thomas, saying number 2, Jesus said, let the one who seeks not stop seeking until one finds. When one finds, one will be unsettled from the old way. When one is unsettled like this, one will become amazed and will overcome all. So Jesus is saying there that if you search for this beautiful connection to heaven, initially it's quite unsettling because it's another world, it's another power, it's another life force. And all the laws of gravity and physical things here are sort of null and void. They have no effect anymore under the spiritual life force's influence. And it is a bit unsettling for that to happen if we're able to achieve that, because it sort of rocks the foundation of our material understanding of this world and who we are. But it doesn't. The loving life force never hurts anything, so it's okay. And then you'll be amazed at how powerful this beautiful love is, and then you'll have power over everything, in the sense that we don't. Jesus had power over everything through the life force, but he only used it for love, you see, and that's the only way it can be used anyway. You can't use it for any other purpose. But we should all have this. It's the only way we're going to bring peace on earth that I can understand. Mark 5:35-36. So Jesus went with him. But while on the way, a man from the ruler's house came and said, your daughter is dead, do not trouble the teacher any more. But Jesus heard what the man was saying, and he said to the ruler, do not be afraid, but only trust and believe. Have faith, and I'll heal your daughter. That was when he was going to heal the daughter and Jairus' daughter, and he did. Brought her back to life. John 4:49-51, the nobleman said to him, sir, please come down before my child dies. Jesus said to him, go your way, your son has life. So the man believed the words that Jesus spoke to him and went his way. And as he was returning home, his servants met him and told him, saying, your son is alive and well. He believed Jesus. He had faith in him. They knew, these people who trusted Jesus knew he was different. He wasn't like any other Jew, because he wasn't Jewish. He was a singularity of love. The Jews are dualistic. He tried to bring them out of it, but they killed him. Mark 5:28-29, 33 and 34. A woman with a bleeding hemorrhage believed that if she could just touch the cloak of Jesus, as he passed by, she would be healed, and she did, and her bleeding was immediately healed. She came and fell down before Jesus and told him of her healing. Jesus said, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go now in peace and be healed of your affliction. Your faith has made you well. Your faith in me. Your faith that I'm different, that I'm connected to some sort of love for everyone. She knew it. She knew he was different. Matthew 14:29-31. Jesus replied, come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came towards Jesus. But when he was distracted by the strong winds, he became frightened and began sinking, crying out, Master, save me. Jesus immediately reached out his hand to him and held on to him, saying, O man of little faith, why did you doubt? Peter was actually walking on the water. Brilliant achievement. And they went and woke Jesus, saying, Master, Master, save us, for we are perishing. Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, Why are you so afraid? Have you no faith? A leper implored Jesus, saying, If you are willing, you are able to cleanse me of this illness." Jesus, moved with compassion, stretched out his hand and touched him and said, "I am willing, be cleansed." As soon as he spoke these words, immediately the leprosy left him and he was cleansed. The leper knew Jesus was special. There was something about him. He loved everyone. And there it is, the connection to heaven, love. Matthew 8, 5-13. A centurion who had heard about Jesus came forward to him saying, "Master, my servant is lying paralyzed at my home in terrible distress. Please heal him." Jesus said, "I will come now and heal him for you." But the centurion answered Jesus, saying, "Master, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word and my servant shall be healed." When Jesus heard him, he marveled and said, "Truly I say to you, not even in all of Israel have I found such faith and trust in me." And Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, be it done for you as you have believed." And the servant was healed from that moment. So that's a Roman centurion, so sort of you might say an enemy of the Jews. But Jesus was going to heal his servant, not a problem, because Jesus had perfect equanimity. His mind was singular. We're all children of God. The Roman's servant, everyone. He knew that. But not the Yahweh God. No. That's a two-headed God. Just the divine source of our spiritual life, which is only love. That's the true source of everyone's spiritual body. That's the problem with the world. Children aren't being taught this. They're not waking up to their spiritual identity. That's the problem. That's what we have to bring into the world now. We've got to change. You've got to teach children this when they're young. They've got a spiritual body of love. They've got to move into it. Jesus said, "Have faith." Number 7. Mark 10:50-52. A blind man by the roadside calling out to Jesus was brought to him. And Jesus asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man said to him, "Master, that I may receive my sight." Then Jesus said to him, "Go your way. Your faith and belief in me has made you well." And immediately his sight was restored. See, they had great faith in Jesus because he had this love. And he had the loving spiritual life force from heaven in it. And that's what did the works. He said that. It's the loving Creator's life force in me that does the works. Of myself I can do nothing. He's helping us all understand once you're connected to this loving life force from this other dimension, this other universe, you can only do good things with it. You can't hurt anyone with it, but it's pure love. So you've got to at least try to be clean in order to receive it and to share it. We can certainly manifest it just by being kind and thoughtful and caring, compassionate, generous. We can do these things, absolutely. But this higher level of having this power of healing, that's a really beautiful level to have. And we should be able to do it because Jesus taught the disciples how to do it, but it died out. Mark 7:24. A Canaanite woman came to Jesus and cried out to him, saying, "Master, have mercy on me, for my daughter is severely possessed by a demon. Please help me." And Jesus replied, "O woman, your faith and trust in me is great. Be it done for you as you desire." And her sick daughter was healed from that hour. Jesus said, "Have faith." Number 8, Mark 6:4-6. Jesus came to his own country, but they had no belief in his spiritual wisdom or power and were offended by his teachings. Jesus said, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own country and among his own relatives and in his own house." And he could do no mighty works there except heal a few sick people. And he was amazed by their lack of belief. They had no faith in him. No faith or belief in his connection to heaven or the heavenly spiritual universe of love. They didn't believe in that. They were Jewish. They had no idea about this, that heaven's only love, that you can be connected, that you've got a spiritual body of love. They didn't know anything about this. That's why he was trying to teach them this new understanding. Thomas 31, a prophet is not popular in his hometown, and a doctor cannot heal family and friends. See, once your familiarity is too familiar, they all thought Jesus was just the carpenter's son. How could he heal anybody? He's just the carpenter's son. You know, that's what it says in the Gospels. You know, they just judged him as, he's not a rabbi, he's not a teacher, he hasn't been to the Jewish university or whatever. of rabbinic knowledge. He's just a carpenter's son. We know his dad, Joseph, He can't be, how could he know all these things and do all these healings? Oh, we don't believe it. So there you go, no faith, no belief. So not to worry. Author. Jesus tells us it is imperative that we believe in the spiritual power and loving life force of our loving Creator in heaven, which can alter any material thing on earth, including our bodies of flesh. It is clear that the best healings were attained when the person who was ill really believed Jesus had the spiritual power from heaven to heal them. Through faith in him as a loving spiritual child of heaven on earth, they were open to receive the healing spiritual life force from our loving Creator as it flowed from her into him and then into their bodies from Jesus. As Jesus said, "He who believes in me and my spiritual way, out of his inner spirit will flow rivers of living water." That's the living spiritual life force that healed all those children's sick bodies. It came from heaven into him, and he just floated out of him into their physical bodies and asked them to be healed by the loving spiritual Creator, who is the Creator of a new body. The people in his own locality where he grew up could not believe in his spiritual transformation and spiritual power and wisdom he now had from heaven. They judged him because he was just a carpenter's son, not a Jewish rabbi. But this spiritual awakening is within us all, from carpenters and cleaners to kings and popes, and that is what Jesus was really teaching. And we must have faith that if we apply ourselves to open up this spiritual way and belief that awakens our true spiritual eternal life, we can really make a difference in this dangerous material world by being bridges from heaven to earth, to bring heaven's love to all. Our loving spiritual Creator is only love. We must become her spiritual children of only love on earth. So the really interesting thing about one of those healings is the hemorrhage, the woman with the hemorrhage. Now, what's really stunning about that is it gives a very clear understanding of how the healings worked. Jesus himself said, it's this spiritual loving life force in me, in my spiritual body, that flows out of me to someone that heals them. Of myself I can do nothing. It's the spiritual loving life force in me that does all the works. The woman just grabbed his cloak as he was walking by in a crowd, and the full story is, of course, there's a mob around him. It was like the Beatles, he was like mobbed wherever he went, and people were grabbing onto him and trying to touch him and calling out to him, and this woman sort of put her hand through the legs that would have been there and grabbed his cloak as he went by. Now Jesus stopped. He said, "Someone touched me." And the disciples go, "Someone touched you?" They're all trying to grab a hold of you. They're all grabbing onto you. What do you mean someone touched me? He said, no, I felt the power go out of me. That's the loving spiritual life force in his awakened spiritual body that we all have, but we're not immersing ourselves in it. We're not in the water. We're more in the vase most of the time. He was in the water. He was in his spiritual body, in his physical body or vase. So he looked around, and the woman knew that something had happened. She felt the healing. She felt the life force in her body come into her. He felt it flow out of him. He didn't know who it was, what was wrong with them. He wasn't even involved in healing her. This loving spiritual being and all our loving spiritual life force in our spiritual bodies come forth from her, or this divine spiritual world of love. And because that loving life force was in the woman and in you and me and in every living human child on earth, it's connected to heaven, connected to the divine source of the creation of heaven and our spiritual bodies. And the consciousness, that mind, that pure consciousness knows everything about you and me, because you have a spiritual body that's from there. And the consciousness, the divine omniscient consciousness, knows all about you. So the Divine One knew that this woman had a bleeding problem. This Divine One knew that she touched Jesus' cloak. She had faith in him. He was different. He loved everyone. So inadvertently, unknowingly, she was connecting to the divine source of heaven through him, because he was so good. She trusted him. His goodness resonated with her. She knew he was different, better than the other rabbis and Sadducees and Pharisees and these people, the Jewish people, the dualistic Jewish people. He was singular. He loved everyone, even lepers. He even touched lepers. Shock, horror. That's how loving he was. He was spiritual. And she was healed. So the divine source from heaven of Jesus' own spiritual life and body, the divine creator moved some of the life force in Jesus' spiritual body, which is like a wellspring, remember, an eternal wellspring. You never run out of it once you've got it, once you realise you've got it. And it just flowed out of him to her. The divine spiritual creator flowed her loving life force in Jesus out of him to the woman. As soon as she touched the cloak, it transferred across to the woman. Jesus was not involved at all in it, in any way. He was not consciously involved. Who is she? Who is the one? Is it a woman? Is it a man? Is it a child? I've got no idea. What's wrong with them? I've got no idea. The loving spiritual creator did it from heaven, but through Jesus and through the life force in him. So it seems the life force is passed from us into someone. Elsewhere in the Gospels it states how Jesus kept healing, wherever he went, and power went out of him into them. Power went out of him. This is the loving spiritual life force, which is pure love. That's why it's so powerful. But you've got to have faith that it exists. You've got to have faith in heaven. You've got to have faith that there's this extraordinarily beautiful presence of love that we're going to all be in the presence of when we die, in our spiritual body, not flesh. That doesn't rise from the dirt. And then it's just a matter of, are we filled with love now? Because if you are, you're going to enter heaven. Whether you're a Christian, Jew, Buddhist, Muslim, Baha'i, atheist, it doesn't matter. What matters is, as Jesus would say, the new covenant. And the correct translation of the Greek word covenant means disposition, the new character. Disposition means the qualities of your character. What's your disposition? Well, the disposition of any spiritual child is love and non-violence. If that is your disposition, you are already part of the new covenant, the new identity. Your spiritual body is alive. That's what Jesus is talking about. That's the new identity. That's the new covenant. That's the new disposition. You've got a spiritual body, but is it alive? Are you living out of it? Is that the one that you put in the front of you, that you're living out of that, and your physical body merely expresses the divine love in your spiritual body? Or are you in the physical body with its brain, which is dualistic, and your spiritual body's sort of behind it, or the water in the vase, but your vase is now becoming so great and so powerful and so mighty that you're Vladimir Putin murdering thousands of children, you're Netanyahu murdering thousands, tens of thousands of children, Hamas, Iran, Ukraine. Have you become just a stinking, filthy, rotten vase of death, surrounding your beautiful spiritual body with stinking filth? And that's the difference. You can't work a miracle. Those kids can't work miracles. They never will. They're going to suffer a hellish experience when they die, and they will deeply regret it. They got no idea about what life's about. Nothing. Zero. They got no belief in heaven, no belief in life after death. They might say they do. It's all garbage. It's all rubbish. They're living out of the beast of the flesh, murderers, satanic children. Rubbish. Garbage. We have to feel sorry for them. I don't know how you can stop them. I don't know how you can wake them up out of their insanity and bring them back into their spiritual identity. But as a spiritual child, I'm obliged to try to do that. I'm obliged to warn them, you're all going to hell. You're going to regret it. Lay down your guns now and apologise to the world for the stinking filth you've committed and to all the people you've murdered and killed. But you see, if they don't listen, what can you do? I can't become like them, and I'll certainly never pick up a gun. I can't do that because I won't get into heaven if I do that. So there you go. So have faith that heaven's there. Have faith that it's love. Have faith that you've got a spiritual body. Have faith you've got two bodies. Believe you've got two bodies. One's going to die. Feed it to the vultures. Jesus said it's dead. It's finished. There's nothing in it. You're leaving in your spiritual body, he said. That's the one that has to be alive. How do I bring it alive? It has to be filled with the loving spiritual life force from above, born again from above. From this is another dimension. Heaven's another dimension. It's another world. It's spiritual. I don't know what it looks like. I've had no visions like that. I haven't seen an angel or anything like that. I haven't heard voices or anything like that. But I'm inspired by his words, and I always have been. And they really elevate me into this beautiful feeling. And that beautiful feeling is the heavenly feeling. The singularity, it's the clear light mind experience, which I certainly meditate on and try to strengthen as much as I can. Even though I'm very ill, at the moment and in a lot of pain, it's quite always surprising how once I start thinking about heaven, how the pain recedes into the background. That's the physical body, the pain. My spiritual body's, hopefully relatively okay. Relatively okay, I hope. Perfect? No. My mother was a saint, Lorraine. And I always say to people, my mother was a saint. I'm only the son of a saint. Okay, well that's the chapter on faith. Faith is a part of our spiritual practice because it's unseen. You can't see spiritual bodies. You can't see spiritual world. But the connection is within you. It's your spiritual body. But you've got to experience it. You've got to bring your spiritual body alive while you're in the flesh, and then you'll live out of it. So your whole physical life will alter and shift and change. If you're greedy and miserly, you'll become generous and sharing. If you're a money worshipper, you'll start giving it to charities. You'll put that money to good use for the people in desperate need. If you were a violent person, you'll become a peaceful person. If you really support war in the armaments industry, you'll demonstrate against shutting these bastards down, right out of existence. All armies, right out of existence. Every bloody gun, weapons manufacturing, bomb, drone, missile making, bloody industry in the world. You'd be out there demonstrating, saying, shut these satanic bastards down. That's how you'll change. But you won't be liked by the satanic bastards. They don't like any spiritual children. They hate us. Jesus said, be careful. They're going to hate you if you're spiritual. They love killing. They love murdering. They love having an armaments industry. They're Satan's children. So we stand, unfortunately, to be persecuted. But don't worry. Jesus said, don't worry, but if they can kill your body of flesh, don't worry. He didn't say it's going to be easy not to worry. He said it's not that important. They're going to hell, you can go to heaven. If they want to go to hell, they can go there. Don't be involved in it. Don't support them. Stand against them, shine the light of truth on what the evil they're doing. So the faith is that heaven's there, and that gives me the strength to demonstrate against the armaments industry in Australia. I condemn our government for buying these stinking, filthy submarines. The Australian government. We got homeless people on the street, but they're buying these stinking, bloody waste of warmongering bloody submarines. Billions of dollars thrown down the toilet. We got elderly people who need better nursing homes. We got handicapped people. We got hospitals that need to be better. Oh no, let's get some stinking, filthy, warmongering submarines. And it doesn't matter whether it's Labor or Liberal. They're both the same. They're stinking, filthy, warmongering governments that support armies and air forces to defend ourselves. Jesus would say the only defense and the only enemy you need to defend yourself against is sin. That's the enemy. Enemy destroys your spiritual life. Your body's going to die anyway. Protect ourselves, sure, have a coast guard, have police forces. I'm all for that, totally. Border patrols, etc. We need them. There are gangsters and drug runners and all the rest of it. Whatever's going on in the world that's evil. You need ground forces in your community so that you can take care of criminals and murderers and such things. But we have to now destroy the armies of the world, not by bombing them, but by children no longer going into them. And you can only do that if you're spiritual. If you won't do it if you're spiritual. You won't go into the army, navy or air force. You won't do it. If you're not spiritual, you will. And there's the problem. So that's the one on faith. Believe in something you can't see. Believe in something I can give you no proof about. Believe there's life after death, which I can't show you. And you'll be okay, providing you follow the way of love and non-violence to heaven. Oh, that's easy in a violent world. May your spirit be very strong. Stand up against evil in the world peacefully, but strongly. That sort of strength is massive. It's easy to pull a trigger on a gun and blow the brains out of some child on the earth. These satanic crackpot beasts of the flesh do it all day long in the wars. Much harder to stand there and not fire back and feel sorry for them and pray for their soul. That's what Jesus did on the cross. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Oh well. I would have to be part of a pacifist religion, wouldn't I? That's okay. At least heaven. Beauty. Okay, bye for now.